So with our layout, as I mentioned before, here's the basic premise of what our character is going to be doing. Our character is standing on one side or the other. The character is going to hold for 1 second, then they're going to anticipate and step up each step with 1 foot. Get to the top, they're going to rotate 90 degrees so that they're now facing towards us 3/4. They're going to pause at the top and consider their next action. They're going to think about what they're going to do. And then they're going to anticipate and jump and land and recover down on the other side. Right? Now, to add the twist into this, I want the character to be walking up the stairs with a very specific action, and you get to choose what that action is. Basically, we're not talking about an emotion. And just to talk about that briefly, when I asked you to do a run emotion, what I got were a lot of standard runs with either a smiley face on the face or an angry face on the face, which is not necessarily an emotional run. It doesn't really dictate this is the way the character is feeling. It's a rubber stamp that says character is angry because they've got a frown on their face. But yet the animation did not really necessarily reflect that they were angry because of the way they were running. You would expect more of a stomping type of an action in a run. Okay, so in a lot of cases it wasn't really reflected properly. In this instance here, it has to be reflected in the actions of the way the character goes up the stairs. So I'm not talking about an emotion, but I'm talking about a state of mind or a state of physical being. So when the character is standing at the side here, I'll give you some rough parameters. Let's say your character is going to go up the stairs, but they're really tired. They're exhausted. The way they go up the stairs is going to be reflected in that. They're not just going to prance up the stairs like that. They're going to take a hard time getting up the stairs and be like, ugh, 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 ugh. They might even use their hands, okay, to grab the stair on each step. Okay, there might be a little bit of a pause. You can even have your character, if you want to, your character can go step, step onto the same step, then step, step onto the next step, and then pause, and then step, step onto the next one, to show that they're having a hard time with it. Okay. On the other hand, the opposite, let's say your character is really super energetic, and they're really excited about going up the stairs. Who wouldn't be? So they run up the stairs, they basically prance up the stairs almost. You can have your character go boing, 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 ta-da, and reach the top. Okay? Or you can have a character who's rather fat and struggling with their weight, and so the way they walk would be more of a side-to-side action where they have to almost roll up the stairs with each step. Okay? Now part of this will be not dictated by, but require you to figure out what your character's proportions are going to be in order for them to go up here. So I want to put some limitations on that. You can't have an ant, okay, trying to go up the stairs. I don't want to see this little dot traveling up the stairs. Okay? I want to actually be able to see the character's legs, and I want to be able to see the bend in the legs, and so your proportion of your character should be enough that I can actually see that structure. I don't want a little baby, nor do I want a midget. So the next stage up from ant would be a midget or a little, small person or a baby or something like that. I don't want that either. Okay, I don't want it to be something where the character has to climb up the stairs, okay, using a rope and a ladder or something like that, or drag themselves over the edge. There has to be the point where they can actually stretch their leg up and contact on the stairs and then bring themselves up to the next stage. All right, so the character should be proportionally at least that large. Okay, you can make the character taller if you want, but then be careful. If your character is this tall, when they reach the top of the stairs, you don't want them going out of your field of vision. All right, so if you're going to end up doing that, what you need to do is you need to take your layout and reduce the size of it. Okay, but again, don't make it this puny little tiny set of stairs and this giant monster character, okay, who's going, I'm on the top with one step. Okay, the character has to contact each step with their foot. Okay, they can do it with both feet on each step, as I mentioned before, or it can just be one foot goes onto this one, the next foot goes onto this one, next foot goes onto the top, and then they swing around. Yep.
Well, I was just going to say you can move it down to...
Yeah, you can move it down. Yeah, you can shift your field of vision, but just remember, you've got to allow enough space here for the character to register on field. And this gets into the compositional side of the whole thing, where as a general statement with composition, you want more space to be below than above. So traditionally you would have your horizon line up here within a scene. The horizon line is usually around the character's chest or eye level, which means that if within the basic parameters of perspective and fielding, if this is your field of vision here, then the horizon line cuts across here. That essentially divides where the sky is and where the ground is. So by placing the horizon line right here, we're saying we're looking down more than we're looking up, right? And it just gives a better sense of weight to the scene. So you can see that based on the parameters of the perspective that I've got here, I have a horizon line that's somewhere roughly around here. Now within your overall fielding, I don't want you to field it like this, because then we're seeing more above than we are below, and we lose the surface of where the character is. So ideally you should have, when your character is placed within the field of vision, you should have more space below than you do above within the fielding and the spacing of the character. Okay? So just think in terms of that when you're setting up your scene. So I don't mind if you shift it down a little bit, but not too much. And then also consider, what's your character going to do when they get out here? Right? And we'll talk about that in just a little bit once we get into the analysis of what's going on. So I want your character to go up the stairs with a specific, not emotion, but there has to be a feeling that the character is actually in a certain state. Okay? So if you want to call it happy and they're bouncing up the stairs, or they're sad and they're walking very slowly and they're tired, or if they're angry they're going to stomp up the stairs, okay? Those all have to be reflected, right? What I don't want is, I don't want this mad scramble, okay? I don't want the character to and all of a sudden they're up at the top, right? There has to be an actual physical contact with the stair, right? So same thing, I'm going to put limitations on it again, and these are extreme limitations, but I've seen it happen. Even though I said it, people have tried it, and I've said don't do it. So here's what I don't want. I don't want your character standing at the bottom here, and I don't want Star Trek teleportation. The character's up at the top. I also don't want Chris Angel. Okay? That should not happen either. All right? So those are the basic things that I don't want to see. The character must touch each step as they walk up the stairs. All right? We're clear on that? All right. So now when the character gets up to the top, the character is going to come up to the top and they're going to do a turn 90 degrees to face. So in this instance here, they're facing the back. We're looking at their butt and their back in a 3/4 rear view. And then they're going to rotate once they get to the top of the stairs. So that's a continuous action. Okay, going from the bottom, they'll anticipate, because anytime you start to move in one direction, you have to anticipate in the opposite direction. So in order for them to step up the stair, they have to lift one of their legs up, which means they have to counterbalance themselves, which means they're going to go in the opposite direction, one way or the other. They'll step on the stair and then cushion. Right? What you choose to do with their hands is completely up to you. If you want to have them place their hand on the stair to steady themselves, that's fine. If you want their arms to swing beside them, that's fine. Okay, you decide what the arms are going to do, but it has to be in opposition. So you can't have same arm, same leg, right? We've already discussed this in the run cycle and the walk cycle. You can't have the one arm on the one side moving at the same time as the same leg. It has to be in opposition so that there's torque. Once your character gets to the top, it's a continuous action, so once they step, they will then bring their foot around and then plant their foot onto the opposite side. It could be a 1-2 step thing, or you could just have the character spin and plant and stop, so you can do like a pirouette type thing where it pivots on that point. But when the character comes to the stop at the top, there has to be a recovery of whatever type. So it depends on the action that you have at the top will determine the type of recovery that you have at the top, at the end of it. The character is then to pause at the top. By pause, I mean you determine how long the character is going to pause at the top based on what they are thinking. Because they have to jump down to the bottom of the stairs, so are they thinking, hey, this is a piece of cake, no problem. Whoop, boink, and down they go. So how long did it take me to say, this is a piece of cake, no problem? Maybe 2 or 3 seconds, right? So that's the amount of time that the person has to verbalize that thought in their brain. That's the amount of time that the pause would have to be as well. Right? So the character can't turn, boink, and then jump immediately and expect me to believe that the character actually thought all that stuff within that fraction of a second. There has to be a pause. Right? The pause can be an animated hold, but I want you to put the character into an attitude that reflects what their thought is. So if they're scared, I need to see them in a fearful pose. If they're anxious about it, which is the same as scared, but if they're brave and they feel this is no problem, then they should assume an attitude of being brave and unafraid. Right? If they're cautious about it, maybe they want to, test it out, maybe see whether or not it's going to work, that should be reflected as well. Right? Then from that pause position and that attitude pose, I then want them to anticipate properly and jump basically up and out. So it's like the broad jump. They're going to come down and land in a controlled way. So again, I don't want kung fu kicks. I don't want flips, spins. I don't want crashes. I don't want falls. Okay? The character cannot land flat on their face. They have to land in a recovering way where they can cushion themselves. But the recovery on this one is going to be greater than the recovery that we had on our broad jump, because the broad jump wasn't very high. And it was a different type of a jump. It was across a distance. This one is basically straight up and down, but it's of a greater height than the character would normally be able to actually physically jump up. Okay, so the recovery is going to be greater than what we had previously. Right? So you're going to get at least 2 or 3, possibly even 4 bounces on the end in recovering up to the stop. And then I want a 1 second hold at the very tail end. Again, animated hold, right, with 3 drawings. Okay? So everybody understands the basic parameters of what we're going to do? Right? Pretty simple. So now the next stage that we have to go through is going to be action analysis. We have to actually go through the process of figuring out what is this action going to be by physically actually doing it. So what we're going to do is we're going to transition out of the classroom here. We're going to go to a set of stairs in the stairwell, and we're going to talk about that.